They were big, they were bad, they were expensive.
And they were exclusively in the 80s.
We're talking Playsets, so stay tuned. Welcome to Days of Dorker Past. My name's Rob.
And I'm Chris.
And in this episode, we're going to talk about the biggest and the best and the elusive playsets from the 1980s.
The 80s were awesome because every toy line that came out, usually in the first wave, there was usually some sort of playset.
Yes.
You know, and there were some great ones and there were some not so great ones, but the thing is now I don't think the kids get the play sets like we get, and the closest which we've talked about is probably Lego.
Or the Imaginext toys.
True, very true, very true. But that's a definite void in today's market.
It is, and it's definitely, it's a price thing. I mean, when you're talking about an average action figure costs $12 to $20.
Depending, yes.
A playset would be over $100 right
Every
off the
bit.
bat.
Every bit. You look at those nice black Star Wars toys, and every so often they decide to give you a vehicle or something like that. The price points for those are just absolutely insane. You know what I mean? But,
and they're huge.
And they are huge. I don't take anything away from them.
It's a play set because right now Walmart's got a TIE fighter.
Yeah, I did see that.
It's friggin' huge.
Yeah. But
yeah, this list is mostly made up of stuff that we wanted
or had.
Somewhat. I mean, yeah, some of them we had, but even back then they were a bit pricey.
Yeah, they were. They were usually 2 to 3 figures.
Yeah.
Cost. Equivalent cost.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? So
anyway, start us off. What would be one that you...
So, as anyone knows on this channel, I have very fond memories of one I think is one of the best toy lines that was invented in the 80s, and that is the Sectars.
Oh, yeah.
And in the Sectars line has the privilege, the honor, whatever you wish to refer to it as, having the biggest playset, I think, in the 80s, besides maybe the Flag.
Oh, yeah.
But this thing was massive. It was called the Hive. And all playsets have action features, and this one, of course, had its own. Now, we've talked about the revolutionary aspect of Sectars with the puppets.
Yes.
Well, the playset was no different. It had this great spider thing that came out, and of course it was just nothing more than a hand puppet, but the detail in them was always what made them fantastic. It had the proverbial trapdoor. Just wasn't a playset of the 80s without a proverbial trapdoor. It had a place to lock up your figures. It had a hidden science lab. It had a place for the flying characters to land at the top. A turret, a ball. Never had this toy. I can't even remember ever seeing it in the wild.
No.
You know what I mean? As a kid. But this thing was truly one of the absolute coolest playsets of the 80s. And the great thing about it was the scale of the figures, of course, was tall to begin with.
Yeah,
they were a 6 or 8 inch toy.
Yeah.
So then, of course, the playset to scale is just as, incredible. So it's one of those things where if I won the lottery, I would probably look for, honestly, to have one. I think it's just the neatest, one of the neater ones. So.
Yeah. Unfortunately, my exposure, I mean, I had a ton of Sectars, but that's because
they went on sale.
They were on clearance pretty much from the first moment I saw them. But yes, I never remember seeing the Hive. I remember the commercials. I mean...
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man.
But it's one of the toy lines I'd love to see come back in some way, shape, or form.
Definitely. Yeah, but if they do, it unfortunately be on a collector's market. And,
you know what? I've talked about this. If it's done well, I'll spend the money.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? But if you're just going to roll out something in a repackage, you know what I mean? Anyway, your one.
The first one on my list is Boulder Hill from the Mask toy line.
That was a great one.
I think background on it, I remember seeing it in the box in the stores because Mask did have a good push there for a while.
Oh, quite a while, yeah.
A kid down the street from me had one, but it was always in his closet, and it was one of those can't touch
kids.
it. Yeah. So I never got to actually play with it or see it outside of the box, but it was in that closet. Still ticks me off to this day. But anyway, it was large, but unfortunately it was a lot of empty space too.
Well, also, but there wasn't it, of course, Mask was a smaller scale toy line.
It was.
You know what I mean? But what I always liked about Boulder Hill was how it kept in the theme, well, of course, with the toy line, with the, looks like a gas station.
Oh, yeah. And everything flipped around.
Right.
Even the billboard dropped down to be like a turret station. The pumps turned into guns. You had a nice garage to park your cars in. And it was cool because it had like an armored thing that would pull out.
Yeah. Telescoping.
Like a bunker almost.
Yep.
But, I mean, I have such fond memories of Mask. And
so do I.
And to this day, I don't understand why it's never made a comeback.
And the thing is, we, of course, talk about G.I. Joe a lot on this channel, but when G.I. Joe did their 25th anniversary set, they did that Matte Tracker.
Yes.
And that is by far, I think, one of the best toys in that 25th anniversary line. And I would love to see those characters done in the same format, all of them from Bedlam, and you know what I mean. I thought all of them were kind of cool. The cartoon was great. That is one of the few toy sets of the 80s, or toy lines of the 80s. I didn't understand why that didn't catch on. That is honestly because they were all great toys.
They were, and the price really wasn't that
No,
bad.
they weren't.
And they were skilled, like how G.I. Joe was, or even Transformers, where you had different price points that you went up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they even sold...
well, like the helicopter jet ski thing or whatever it was.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that was like a $7 toy or $6 toy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then, of course, if you wanted the Jeep that became a boat, that was an $11 toy. You know what I mean? If you wanted Mad Tracker, it was a $16.
And then if you wanted Rhino, the semi, that's $25, $30.
Right.
And they even sold accessory packs, which...
Yeah, which I'm a huge fan of.
Yeah, they'll never do that again. That was a great thing. Where you got the figure minus the vehicle in a whole different suit with a whole different mask, and he came with mountain climbing gear or whatever, which was a great throwback to G.I. Joe.
Yes.
The original G.I. Joe.
Yep, they were great.
So,
anyway.
That was my number one. What's your number two?
So back in the early 80s, D&D was gaining popularity, and of course it was also being teared down at its roots. And the D&D toy line came out, and I think to this day is the most unique toy line that's ever been out, because of scale of figures and so forth and so on. I mean, just everything worked for it. I mean, it was like people who really cared about that toy line. There was cloth parts of the toys, and just a great toy line. But anyway, in that, of course, had its playset, which was Fortress of Fangs. Now, Fortress of Fangs is not very awe-inspiring when you see it, because it is a very condensed playset. Okay? And it's kind of visually very appealing, though. It is just this two eyes basically looking like a serpent's mouth. There's this devil demon thing sitting on the top of it. But yet again, it has its proverbial trapdoor. It has all of its steps and staircases. But this was a tight little playset. But it had a lot of action features. So it was very unique when it comes to the playsets of the era. We just talked about two of them, which were kind of big and encompassing and so forth. Fortress of Fangs literally probably sat on a 3-ring binder. You know what I mean? It was a very small...
It's definitely one that you could take on the go.
Absolutely, 100%. But the thing that was neat about it is, for something that took such a small spot, it was really cool. Slides, trapdoors. The demon did a wrap you up thing or something like that.
It did something where it just popped up.
Yeah, and I dropped you back into the prison in the center, which of course were the fangs of the fortress. But great toy, and yet again, this is one of those toys I have no recollection of ever seeing it in the wild. But here's the other thing.
Just on the back of packages. That's
right, but I'm saying like seeing it,
Yes. I'm even thinking I don't remember a commercial. I don't remember any advertising for it, but it was on the back of the packages, and that, and it's packed with so much character. Just in a picture.
Well, that was the whole toy line. The whole toy line had packed with character. But here's the thing I think that's interesting. I have seen D&D figures at shows and conventions and so forth and so on. I have never seen the Fortress of Fangs at a show or convention.
No, me neither.
You know, and that is one of those things where if I'm looking back at it, it is probably one of the rarest play sets out there because
It's
you
gotta be
just
up
don't
there.
see it. You just do not see it. I mean, there isn't a Facebook feed that I go through that I don't see a flag or a Terradrome or something. You know what I mean? Or
Still in the
Grayskull,
package, which is
yeah, or Castle
surprising,
Grayskull.
yeah.
You know what I mean? But something like that, you never see it. I've never seen it. So,
I mean, I've definitely have seen YouTube videos of
Oh,
people
sure,
reviewing
sure,
on the stuff, but yeah, I mean, it's few and far between.
I agree. Your next one, my friend.
This is one I actually had, and it's the Ewok Village.
Probably one of the best play sets ever.
Yeah, because it was, of course, Ewoks. I love them. I love Star Wars, but with how the tree bases, the
canopy,
the little
yep.
slide, or not even a slide, just a drop through, little huts. You could use it for anything.
Which
I mean, it was
many
great
of us
for
did.
GI Joe. Oh, anything to that scale. I mean, He-Man wouldn't fit, but. I mean, yeah, you had the net that dropped down, you had the boulders, you know, the stuff where they attacked the ATSTs and everything. I loved it. I mean, but unfortunately it ended up being one of those things where my parents were like, well, you don't have room for this anymore. We're going to sell it at a yard sale. And we keep the money. I was like, God damn it.
And the thing is honestly, we all had a second shot at buying this because it was repackaged as the
Yes.
Robin Hood Prince of Thieves playset.
Yeah.
Which they didn't change hardly anything at all on the two versions.
Well, heck, the Friar Tuck has the Gamorrean guard with a human head.
Yeah. But this is probably one of the most fantasized, mythicized playsets of the 80s because it was awesome. And
Yes.
I mean, and the thing is it was affordable. So you talk to a lot of
Yes.
people our age, it was not uncommon for it just seemed like a lot of people owned
Yes.
that playset, and me including. But it was one of the absolute best, and I can remember using it often for G.I. Joe.
Yes.
Quite often for G.I. Joe. I think it's one of the...
I mean, because it adds to the imagination because you had 3 massive tree trunks.
Yes.
You had the base with a little fire in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you had your sticker. A lot of the
Playsets.
embellishments were stickers on the playsets. And, I mean, even that spit came in handy.
Yes.
Cobra catching
Yep.
somebody, yeah.
Telling you, I'd say it's probably one of the top 10 playsets of the 80s. I mean, we're highlighting it here for obvious reasons, but I mean, I just think it's one of the best. I really do.
And, I mean, I think it's slightly unfortunate because it is prevalent out there.
Mm-hmm.
But people hike up the price because it's Star Wars. Right off the bat,
It's
that
Star
adds
Wars,
price.
and the other thing is with that one in particularly, it's very difficult to find that thing in really good shape.
Oh yeah, it's always
You know,
missing something. The net,
Yeah, the
usually
net's
gets
the
ripped
yep,
apart.
Yep. Or the bridges are jacked up, or
Yes.
something. You know what I mean? Whatever it is. But honestly, if you don't know what we're talking about, go Google image this, or Rob,
Oh, no,
maybe
I'm throwing an
no,
image
he's
on
going to throw it in. Take a look at it. It is one of the coolest sets. It is yet again. I would love to find one complete for not a mint.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But anyway, number 3.
This was so in the 80s, most toy lines had to have a slime feature. Okay, slime, which was some sort of, what the hell was it? It was something.
I know the stuff that we make now with the kids is not the slime that we.
No, ours smelled like a chemical fire.
Oh, but I love that smell. I miss that smell.
So this stuff was basically a mucus membrane in a can, and but everybody had one of these slime type product play sets. Well, my personal favorite, because I may have been one of the first ones, but it's the one that sticks out in my head more than any other, was the Horrid slime pit from Masters of the Universe. Okay, so this thing was cool in and of itself because you put the slime in the top of it, and it oozed through this skeletal dinosaur-looking, mouth, and of course it was,
It
skeletal.
had a huge hand that
Yes.
held the sliming victim in place.
So great toy, great action feature, but for whatever reason, when I say that everyone, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles had a slime attack thing, I don't know what it was, but all of those toy lines had some sort of slime. But this one always sticks out in my mind more than any other because I honestly think it may have been one of the first.
It may have been one of the first, but it also cut such an impressive visual.
Yes, yet again. Well, most of the Masters of the Universe ones did.
Yes.
That, you know, with the toy line itself was bulky. You know, the figures were bulky. They were big. They were, you know. So the play sets also had a feel of scope, if you will.
Oh, yeah.
And so and this was no different. Like Rob said, you know, the visuals of it, the creature that oozed the slime, the hand that kind of like held the guy prisoner, was really one of the more visually appealing toys. It was one of the ones that I had, and still wish I had. So it was a great. I had a lot of fun with that toy. You know, cousin of mine. So.
Yeah, I never had one, but yeah, I mean the commercials. Were
Oh, they were
awesome.
great.
The package art alone. I mean,
All the
He-Man-
Masters of the Universe package
Yeah.
arts, they were all freaking top line.
Yeah.
Your next one, my friend.
Oh, this is one I never had.
Mhm.
I remember seeing a commercial for it maybe a handful of times, but it always stuck out in my mind, and that's Mumra's
Oh.
Tomb Fortress. And what I dig about it the most today, looking at it, is you had his Ancient Spirits of Evil statues
Yes.
included with it.
Yes.
You had his sarcophagus
Included. Yep.
It. Other than
Now,
that,
didn't
there
that have
wasn't-
a switch? Right.
I think it did.
Okay,
I think
okay.
it did. But all in all, that's pretty much all it had.
But it was cool though.
Yes, and they all kind of stood
Yes.
separate. And
It was a good representation of the cartoon.
yes, but of course, me now looking at it, I mean, any supernatural occult toy is awesome. Monsters awesome. I mean, so
That toy wouldn't be made now.
oh no.
Mm-mm.
But
No. Anyway,
it's just visually neat.
it is.
Of course, back then I wanted it just for the simple fact of it was pretty cartoon accurate.
Yeah.
Mumra was awesome.
Yep.
But now I would love to get my hands on it just for its uniqueness. Because, like you said, stuff like that will not get made nowadays.
But yet again, we go back to, you know, what we talk about with the shows and the conventions.
Mhm.
This is another one of those things where I haven't seen it. You know, I've seen 1,000 Thundercats, 1,000 Thunder Tanks, the Claw, the Tiger, whatever, all those different ones.
And I think
I
it
almost
came-
forgot about it until you brought it up.
It came pretty late in the toy line. It almost seemed like something that should have come out in the first wave with everything else. You know what I mean?
Right, right.
But I think LGN was playing close to the vest because they didn't know where their investment was going to go. So unfortunately,
Well, also LGM was going through their financial woes
yes,
at that
they had
point
a very
too.
rocky
Yep.
road. But yeah, I think the one thing that hurt Thundercats was the slow trickle of toys.
Mm-hmm.
I remember like the Berserkers and
Oh,
stuff.
yeah, they were cool.
Hitting the shelf after the show was off
the air.
So
Yep.
it's kind of
Yep.
like, who wants these? Or the Lunatics
Yep.
or whatever.
Yep.
I mean, great toys, but
And then the other problem with those is they got into that weird changing of the packaging. You know, so
Yes.
some of the later toys did not look like the original Thundercats toys, like when they were doing the Lunatics
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. They didn't look like they were associated with the Thundercat line.
exactly.
You know what I mean?
And they got to a point where a lot of other toy lines did, where the action feature outweighed
Weighed the toy, the playability of the figure.
Because there was one, the name escapes
Top
me.
spinner.
Yes, like that dude, and
Yep.
I think there was like a rip roaring guy that would
Mhm.
shoot around. You know that's all you got. You know,
Oh yeah, definitely. That was it.
not no posability or anything really. So,
You just got a top for $12 or
Yeah.
whatever, right?
and that that bums you out because
It
after
does.
a day of playing with it, yeah,
But yet again, one of the great sets.
Mhm.
I like I said, I had forgotten about it until you had talked about it. I mean, I'm like, what are you? You know, like, oh my god, I forgot
Yeah.
about that. You know. Anyway, one of the great ones.
next.
No list is complete without a GI Joe playset.
Of course.
Now, I had the headquarters, and this was a great toy. We talked about that. The
Mhm.
GI Joe pit headquarters, whatever you want to
Oh,
call it.
yeah.
That was a great toy. You know, perfect. It was built to accommodate so much. A helicopter pad, the Mobat, all great. But I always thought that it was just nothing compared to the Terradrome. I
Oh,
think the
no.
Terradrome was
Yeah.
just one of the coolest play sets of the 80s. That thing was great. You know, the Firebat, you know, your second opportunity to get Wild Weasel. You know what I mean? Came with the Firebat.
No, wasn't that? Oh, he has a weird name like ASOL or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah. You're right. But they were very,
Yeah.
I loved it. I thought it was the coolest. It was big. It was chunky. It was, it was a real playset. And the thing was, wasn't like some of the other ones of the time where it just felt like it had a lot of empty space. It had empty space, but all of it was usable.
Yeah.
So like, here's an armory, or here's a place to lock up, here's a sick bay, here's a this, here's a that. And then yet again, which G.I. Joe was excellent at, here's a place to put this toy, here's a place to put that toy.
Like the ferrets fit perfectly
right.
in the little
Just
bays
one of the it was one of the funnest play sets of that time. And I just think it was great counterpart to G.I. Joe's headquarters. But I always thought the Terrordrome was better.
Great branding, too, because the dome where the fire bat went in, huge Cobra insignia, how it
opened
up.
Yep.
I mean,
I think it's
right
one of those.
there, yes. And it's great because it has the
open play.
For lack of better terms, like the bridge area.
Yes.
Where dudes could sit and there were little computer banks. And, I mean, something like that fueled your imagination.
The only thing I wish they had done is remember how the open top was. I wish there was like a, totally removable, whatever, I get it, I know that. But it would have been cool to have that.
That would have been neat.
Basically, the way the cartoon showed it, and you know what I mean, with that dome actually going over top of it. But still, I think one of the best play sets of the 80s. I really do.
Agree.
Really do. Your next one, my friend.
My next one is yet another Masters of the Universe.
Okay.
And that's Snake Mountain. It's odd when you think about the scale of a He-Man figure over some of the other ones. That they had so many play sets, and great ones at that.
I would argue they were better at the play sets vehicles than they were at anything else. Honestly.
I agree.
So.
But with Snake Mountain, great visual. It didn't look like the Snake Mountain from the cartoon. That's the only downside to it. But you did have a big snake that you talked through, and it had like the coiled spring in there to make your voice, reverberate through it.
And it was a repaint. Because originally it was supposed to be a different play set. You know what I mean?
Like He-Man's Jungle
Adventure or something. Yeah.
But you had that. You had the huge face, which matched Castle Grayskull's, but it was more vulture-like because it kind of had a beak to it. But you had plank ways going across that one of them would pitch down, and on the other side of it you had living space, if you will. Just it
was empty.
It was empty.
So it was
and
a
it one-sided.
Sided.
The same thing that Castle
it did.
Grayskull
But it had this great front, this great playable front with the bridge and everything else. But then the back of it. It's like that missed opportunity I feel like Masters of the Universe did. But, of course, they make up for it at the end with Eternia. But,
But I think you get your sacrifice due to size. Unfortunately. Even though you have all that playable area, that's just more money that it would have cost.
Yeah, but both of those were not cheap. They were both $50, $60 price points, if memory serves. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can't.
They'd be $200 now. But, I mean...
Oh, yeah.
But that was always the issue. I wish they had done maybe a pseudo throne room for Skeletor on the back side. You know what I mean? I'm sure you had a mold for a chair. You used it at Castle Grayskull. Just painted it purple.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Anyway.
Yeah.
Great play set. We're kind of poo-pooing it right now, but that was visually one of the prettiest play sets ever, and it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. That was a good set.
Yeah. Yet again, one I never had. Lived vicariously through the commercials. And yes, I mean, it not looking like the cartoon hurts it a little bit, but it's still an awesome playset.
That was disappointing. You know what I mean? Because the Snake Mountain in Masters, or the He-Man in the Masters Universe, was so cool in the cartoon. It was so neat.
The coiled serpent.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
And they did, Masters of the Universe cartoon did it a lot, just like the glint out of nowhere, like the ching, like its eyes.
On the eye,
glint.
yeah.
Yes.
It was a great.
Just out of nowhere. It was like one of those segues where it's like we're showing it to you, glint, and then
here's Merman, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
Great toy, really was. I actually, looking back at it, I had a cousin. I had Castle Grayskull. I had a cousin who had Snake Mountain.
Nice.
Okay, and I could argue that I think Snake Mountain is the better of the two. I would argue that. That's all I'm saying. I know.
We foundationed a whole episode a year and a half ago to Castle Grayskull's disappointment.
Mm-hmm. Looks great on a shelf. Sticking with the Masters of the Universe philosophy, I loved this toy, and it was very simple. And I think I liked it because, yet again, it came with a hand puppet. I don't know why that always stuck out in my memory, but
because that puts you into the action.
I guess, you know what I mean? And we were, kids, yeah. But the Horde Freight Zone was freaking awesome. It was a 3-sided, so it had this great platform, 2 walls on the side. One was a prison cell, and the other one was a hole where you could put your hand puppet. And this thing looked like a snake or serpent of some sort. And, you could grab the character. But the other thing that was cool is it had a tree in the playset. And if you hit your action feature, the tree would wrap up the figure.
Awesome spooky tree.
Awesome spooky tree. This was a relatively cheaper playset.
Yeah.
It wasn't super expensive. But this is one thing that had like 3 or 4 features in a very small little confined area. This thing was great. And it was so awesome to play with. Now, here's the thing I really liked about it. You could use it with G.I. Joes because the scale wasn't freaking jacked up like some of the other Masters of the Universe toys were. But you could use it for other toy lines. Sectars could get in some of that fun because of the way it was all constructed. But the tree was awesome. The hand puppet was cool. The little prison cell was awesome. All of these things all just had simple buttons or put your hand in but it was really great.
Yeah, they
was
did a
really
great
affordable.
job with making it look like it would be in a swamp somewhere.
Yes.
I mean, that is where the Masters of the Universe line, because granted, you're just getting this hunk of plastic, but your imagination went past that.
Mm-hmm.
With like Snake Mountain, well, you could see this in a mountain range.
Yep.
With the Fright Zone, it would be in a swamp.
One of my favorites, and I just remember it being not super break the bank, and it had just like 3 or 4 features, but what features they were. I just loved that playset. Yet again, also small, confined, easy to take, easy to put on the car, easy to take to grandma's, it was,
cool.
wasn't some big thing I had to disassemble and reassemble somewhere else. Anyway.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. Okay.
Last one on my list. See, and I need to shout out an honorable mention here.
Okay.
But the USS Flag.
That goes without saying.
It does not appear on our list because it's a no-brainer.
It was the quintessential playset of the 80s.
It is the thing that everyone wanted then and they want now. I mean, it is not diminished at all.
It's a fucking coffee table.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And it's every person our age has to have a conversation with their wife. It's like, look, I found one online. It's complete. It's relatively affordable. Can I get it? How big is it? It's the size of our den. You know what I mean? It's a massive playset. It was so unique for the time. It set itself apart. Even after all these playsets we talked about, this thing still sat aside of itself. It was just the most incredible thing. Everything that it came with.
Nothing before it and nothing after.
No. You'll never see its like again.
No.
You know what I mean? You won't. But it had room for the helicopters. It had room for the Sky Striker. It came with little carts to fill up, the missiles. And I mean, this thing had it all. Had a place for the whale. This was one of the absolute coolest sets.
It even had a
yes.
Not a walkie-talkie, but
a megaphone.
Yeah, megaphone. Yep. That's what you would call it. Which, Snake Mountain's coiled spring looks like poop compared to that.
But I mean, everybody wanted this. Anybody who was our age, growing up in the 80s, when that thing came out, because when you bought a vehicle back in the day, you had your little book. Mm-hmm. And in that was all the G.I. Joe stuff. And you could open it up and say, oh, look at that, look at that, look at that. And then I remember looking at the flag, I'm like, oh my God. But...
And the show, after it came out, everything took place on an aircraft carrier, for the most part. With G.I. Joe. Every time they were getting ready to strike something,
it was on that. It was on the flag.
Yeah.
Anyway, that is honorable mention.
Yes.
This is unto itself. Your last one, my friend. I'm sorry. I
Right.
didn't.
No. I mean, I just wanted it to be known. I mean, how
Oh, it has
awesome
to be
was.
known. Yes.
But my number 5, number 1, however you want to say it, is the Defiant, which was the Space Shuttle and
The launch pad.
So you
Which
had,
were two separate action feet. I mean,
Yes.
play sets in and of
you
themselves.
had something about, make sure I'm on camera here, yay big, and it was on wheels.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can put it up. And yes, it was 2 play sets in one, because the spaceship would open up and you had robotic arms and you had cockpits for dudes to sit in. Okay, you play with that, you set it to the side. Well, the launch thing it came with a driver.
Mm-hmm.
It had ladders. It had different, apparatus on it. Yes, it was 2 play sets in one. And of course, at that time period,
It wasn't.
our minds were all about space.
Yep.
The space shuttle,
Yep.
an iconic thing that kids nowadays, I mean, what's his name? Elon Musk is probably the closest thing we have with SpaceX or whatever it's called.
Yeah, you're right about that. You are right
and
about
that's
that.
sad.
But this thing looked like an inflated
Space shuttle.
Space shuttle.
Because it was more flat and
wide. Right.
Yes.
But it was a great, yet again, G.I. Joe always thought the toy-wise did a very good visual toy. You know what I mean? You wanted to play with it.
Oh,
So we
yeah.
can talk about the flag, we talked about the Terradrome, we even talked about G.I. Joe Space. All of them, they had a great visual appeal to them. And that was the other thing that was great about G.I. Joe, and the Defiant was no different. You always felt like you got your money's worth.
Oh, yeah.
So when, 2 play sets in one, this thing opened up, it had all this different stuff, had a full functioning cockpit. I mean, you could put like 30 fucking figures in this thing.
Well,
You know what I mean?
that's one thing G.I.
Yep.
Joe excelled at, where
Yep.
you have, like, the Dreadnought trike.
Yeah.
The Dreadnought cycle.
Yeah.
Guy drives it, someone sits in the back in the turret, and then you had posts around it where people could hold on, and, one little motorcycle held 6 people.
Right, exactly. and that was not, it was almost every vehicle. You know
Yes.
what I mean? Almost every vehicle had that capability, it seemed. So the more money you spent, the higher the capability was. But the cool thing about the Defiant is, remember how you could spacewalk? They had the thing with
Yes.
so even some of the stuff that we had watched growing up as kids on TV, real astronauts doing spacewalks and things like that, the Defiant had the
Yes.
same capability. Great toy. It came towards the end. Not at the end, but towards the end.
It was like the Falcon fast draw era, because I can remember this wonderfully
Motion
painted picture that came with the little booklets. And it was the Defiant, and then like Falcon's portrait was kind of in the background.
Okay.
You had fast draw's helmet. Like you had this really neat artwork that
Right,
incorporated.
Which all of them had. We talk about it, Transformers. Remember the back of the boxes, the Transformer,
yeah.
the artwork. Masters of the Universe freaking was on a scale unto itself. And G.I. Joe had their little action scenes that we'd get. But I do remember it being towards the end. I remember,
Yeah.
wanting it, but never getting it.
Oh, no, definitely not. Because that, I mean, I can't even comment on how much it was, but I could imagine it was.
I bet you it was $100
Yeah.
for the time. You know what I mean? I bet you it was $100.
I'm sure with the years in between, the flag was only a couple dollars more. You know what I mean? Because
Wow,
there's
that's a good
few years
yeah.
in between.
There's probably a
the
3 or
two.
4 year turnaround between the 2 play sets. You know what I mean? Wow, that's a kind of a reality check there. I didn't even think about
Because
that.
but the flag was only like what, 130
Yeah,
when it originally came out.
yeah.
Which, oh my God, that's a mint. But,
Well, I mean, what was the Terradrome? 175? Something like that.
yeah, 80 to 90.
Yeah,
I think,
that's what,
somewhere
that
in
sticks
there.
out in my head. I even think the original G.I. Joe base of operations, or whatever it was called, was around the same price point. Around $80, $90. May have been a little cheaper, but it couldn't have been much more than that.
Yeah.
So. But this is our top 10 play sets.
Yes.
I'm sure we missed something. I
definitely.
know we missed something. Give us what was your great play set when you guys were growing up? Because
What did you want and never got?
where do we all start? Right?
And what awesome adventures did you have with your play sets that maybe weren't what they were marketing, but you had fun?
Like Castle Grayskull.
No, I'm talking more like the Ewok Village.
Oh, yeah, fair enough.
What other adventures did you get into?
Yeah,
that
yeah,
weren't
yep,
necessarily
yep.
what they
We're
had
intended
in
for.
mind. Right.
Yep.
But anyway, if you like what we're talking about, hit subscribe, like us, follow us, do all that good stuff. But until next time, my name is Rob.
And I'm Chris.
Keep being rad.
And stay dorky.
Peace.
Thank you for watching this episode presented by My Side of the Laundry Room. Please check out some of these other recommended videos, and if you enjoyed what you've watched, please hit the subscribe button. You can also follow on Twitter, like on Facebook, and read up on My Side of the Laundry Room at our blog. Thanks for watching. Until next time, keep being rad and stay dorky.